Alrighty, so let's go over the types of reproduction. There are two. There's asexual and sexual. Different organisms use different methods of reproducing, and there are pros and cons to each. So with asexual reproduction, this is when you produce clones of yourself, and you only need one parent for this. It is the simplest form of reproduction. And again, the babies or the offspring are always clones, and there are several ways that you can reproduce asexually. There is fragmentation, when a new organism forms from a piece of the parent. So, for example, if you rip the arm off of a starfish, that arm will grow a completely new starfish, and then the starfish missing an arm will regrow that arm back. A lot of plants do that as well. If you rip or you divide a plant in two, rip off a leaf, take part of the roots, whatever, a lot of times that little piece will grow into a clone of the new plant. So that's pretty cool. There's also a way called budding, which is where a new organism will start to grow off of the original parent, and then once it's ready, it will fall off and start growing itself right next to the parent plant. A lot of plants do that as well. Some animals will do it too. But those are two methods of asexual reproduction. There are some advantages and disadvantages. If you are asexual, then you do not have to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend to reproduce, which saves you a lot of time and energy, because as a married woman, I can tell you that it takes a lot of energy to get a spouse and do all of that. So you don't have to find a mate, and it typically goes a lot faster. If you were to look at bacteria and how they reproduce asexually, it maybe takes 10 minutes for each generation to populate itself. So it tends to be faster, saves you some energy. However, the disadvantage is that your offspring is going to have the same exact genetic makeup as your parent. And sometimes that's good if your environment is pretty consistent and doesn't change. However, if there is a new disease or your environment does change and all of you are exactly the same and none of you have any helpful adaptations, then you're kind of all screwed. So that's a disadvantage, but it works pretty well for bacteria and plants. Now, sexual reproduction, this is where you have to have two parents. They combine their genetic material to produce an offspring that is genetically different from the parents. This is where you get your variation and stuff is. Whenever an egg and a sperm cell join up together, we call that fertilization. That happens with plants. That happens with basically every organism. That's what it's called. And fertilization, again, creates an organism that has different genetic material from the parents. That's the process that makes that is called meiosis. The asexual one is mitosis, if y'all remember that from genetics. And this results in variations. And variation is the major pro to sexual reproduction. Again, if all of you are different, some of you have helpful adaptations, some of you might not, but if there's a new disease or your environment changes, then those with helpful adaptations might be able to survive while the rest of them do not. So that is better for the species overall. However, it does take a lot of energy to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend and to have babies with that person. It often takes a lot longer. Humans are pregnant for about 9 months. Elephants, I think, are pregnant for 2 years. Cats might be pregnant for a month or two, I'm not sure. But it typically takes a lot longer than asexual reproduction. And then we have inherited versus acquired traits. So all of us, for the most part, we're born with the ability to speak. We have mouths, we have tongues, we have vocal cords. However, we would never have learned to speak English or any other language for that matter if we did not hear our parents talking around us. So the inherited part is our vocal cords, our mouths, our tongues. The acquired part is the stuff that we learn, so how to speak English. There was actually a rather dark experiment that scientists did forever ago where they took a baby and raised it and never ever spoke to it to see what language it would speak, and it didn't speak anything because it never learned how to talk. You have to teach a baby how to talk. You're not born with that. So inherited is what you're born with. Acquired is what you learn throughout time. So inherited would be your hair color, your height, maybe a little bit of your athletic ability. Acquired would be learning how to play a specific sport, like if you play football or basketball, learning how to read, write, do math, all of that stuff.